Hey everyone, this is Riley, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make my sourdough round loaf. First, I'm going to take my active sourdough starter that I fed 4 hours ago and add 1/3 a cup of it into my bowl. Now I'm adding 1 2/3 a cup of warm water, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 tablespoon of olive oil into my bowl. Finally, I'm going to add 3 1/2 cups of unbleached all purpose flour. I'm going to mix it until well combined. I just got this dough whisk today and I am super excited to use it. It actually worked really well. If you don't have one of these, a spoon will work just fine. Once I have a shaggy dough formed, I'm going to use my hands to mix the dough until it comes together and forms a smoother dough. This is going to take a while, especially because my dough is stickier than usual, but just keep mixing until it is super well combined. I have been mixing this for about 3 minutes. In the end, the dough should be somewhat sticky, but it should also feel more stiff when you pull it. Once it's mixed, I'm going to cover it and let it rest for 1 1/2 hours. My dough has been resting for 1 1/2 hours, so now I'm just going to fold the dough. To fold the dough, I bring the edges into the center and continue this pattern all the way around the bowl. I'm going to have to fold this more than I usually do because of how sticky the dough is. Folding the dough is going to form more gluten, making a stiffer and stronger dough. I've been folding this for over a minute and this is what it looks like. Now I need to cover it and let it rest overnight. It is now the next morning, and as you can see, my dough has nearly tripled in size. I am going to gently scrape the dough out of the bowl and onto the floured counter. I am using my bowl scraper to get as much of the dough out of my bowl as I possibly can. Now that it's out, I need to shape my loaf. To shape the loaf, I'm going to spread the dough out into a rough rectangle. I'm going to fold the bottom third of the rectangle into the center and then fold the bottom corners over that. Fold the top corners over the rest of the dough and pull those corners into the center too. This should form a rough sphere. Now roll the dough to form a tight ball and fold the edges underneath. My dough is still a bit sticky and loose, so I'm going to roll the dough a few more times. Rolling the dough is going to form gluten and create a tighter and stiffer dough. This will create a smooth surface on the top of the loaf, and it will aid in scoring the loaf later. Now flip the loaf upside down into a Banneton basket or any alternative you choose. To ensure a tight surface, fold the edges of the loaf into the center a few more times. Now let the loaf rest on the counter for 1 hour to rise, and then you'll place it in the fridge for 2 hours to create a nice crust all the way around the loaf. After 15 minutes, the top of the loaf should look crispy but still white. If it still looks doughy, continue baking. Reduce the oven temperature to 475 degrees and bake for an additional 8 minutes with the lid on. After 8 minutes, the loaf should be golden brown along the scored edges. If the edges are not, return to the oven and continue to bake. Once the loaf is ready, reduce the oven temperature to 450 degrees and remove the loaf from the Dutch oven. Place the loaf onto the oven rack and bake for 5 minutes or until the internal temperature is over 200 degrees. My loaf has finished baking and it has been cooling for 30 minutes. It is time to slice it open and see how it turned out. It has a great crust and the inside is super fluffy.